Despite claims of a ceasefire by Azerbaijan, Armenian forces in Nagorno Karabakh Republic report that there have been more attacks by Azerbaijan's military. Both sides are accusing each other of firing the first shots on Saturday. They blame each other for violating a 1994 ceasefire that ended a 6-year war.
It was their violation of the ceasefire regime, the international law, international humanitarian law, and the Geneva Conventions.
Some have called it the frozen conflict. It began with a decision Soviet leader Joseph Stalin made in 1922. Stalin placed the mountainous, ethnically Armenian enclave of Karabakh inside the newly created Azerbaijan Soviet Socialist Republic. Christian Armenians and Muslim Azeris lived in peace for nearly a century. Then, in the late 1980s, when the USSR was breaking up, Armenians in Karabakh held a national referendum for independence from Azerbaijan and self-rule. But Azerbaijan said the region did not have the legal right and sent in its military to retake Karabakh. Thousands of Muslim Azeris from the area were forced to flee, and after years of fighting and more than 30,000 deaths, the Karabakh region, Armenia and Azerbaijan reached a truce in 1994.
We are fighting on our own territory. If an Armenian soldier doesn't want to die, then let them get off Azerbaijani territory.
The Nagorno-Karabakh Republic is not recognized by the UN. Analysts believe the renewed skirmishes could lead to a greater regional war.
Well, Robert Avetisyan is the Nagorno Karabakh Republic representative to the United States. He joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. Now, Armenia and Azerbaijan are kind of blaming each other, certainly about what's happened since the so-called ceasefire was called just a few hours ago. Just to get your perspective, what is your interpretation of what's happened, and not just necessarily on the military front, but presumably what led to it?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And this is a crisis. This is a clear crisis. And it's important to know that the conflict is not between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It is between the Nagorno Karabakh Republic and Azerbaijan. It is very important to know that. And whatever we see now, it's a culmination of a long-term policy aimed by Azerbaijani authorities to derail the negotiation process, which is not leading to the direction it would like it to go, and to gain any short-term or whatever it is, political gains by taking these unwise and tragic decisions.
Now, you mentioned, of course, in Nagorno, it's that the conflict is between Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan. I mean, obviously, you have a very strong ally in Armenia, and by consequence, you also have a strong ally in Russia. Let me just read you something that the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said on Sunday. He said, "We pray our Azerbaijani brothers will prevail in these clashes with the least casualties." Turkey backing Azerbaijan there. I mean, hopefully, everyone hopes this doesn't escalate. But if it does so, are you going to be hoping for the interference of Armenia and, of course, Russia?
Well, first of all, we do hope that the conflict will not spill over the boundaries, and it is very important to take the consistent steps to cool down the situation and to cease the fire and to stop and resume the negotiations, but in the new and more effective format, which would imply resumption of full-scale and full-fledged participation of the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. I want to underscore that the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and the Russian Federation, they don't have any bilateral agreement. So in this conflict with Azerbaijan, we rely on our own forces. Of course, we have connections and we are ties and we are part of the Armenian homeland. We have on various occasions, we have seen statements by the Armenian authorities that they are guarantors of the physical security of the Nagorno-Karabakh population. But now, as of now, we deal with the aggression on our own, and we hope that the international community will take the appropriate, urgent steps to make sure that this conflict doesn't spill over the regional boundaries and doesn't lead to a bigger disaster.
You're speaking to us from the U.S. I mean, obviously, as we've heard in the reports preceding this interview, Nagorno Karabakh has a very interesting status. It's almost a de facto state, but not really. The U.S., for example, doesn't really recognize the Nagorno Karabakh Republic. What is it that ultimately you are hoping to achieve with any kind of peace process? I mean, independence, or would you be happy with just going back to the status quo as was before the violence flared up?
Well, the independence, we have already achieved our independence, and we've been living that independent life.
Well, but sir, in fairness, you're not recognized by many states around the world.
I agree, but we are recognized by the people of the Nagorno Karabakh Republic, which is the most important thing for us. We are fighting for our independence, not for the rest of the world, but for our own destiny. That's our choice, and we are ready to take that path.
Robert Avetisyan, Nagorno Karabakh Republic representative to the U.S. Sir, thank you for having joined us.
Thank you.